Hey guys, it's Cherie Yvette here. I just dropped my husband off and we were having a conversation. For those of you who don't know, me and my husband have a background in education. He is a middle school educator in the inner city, but he got a chance to go over to the high school. Right now he teaches middle school, and he said he got to see about 30 of his past students. You know, some of them not doing so well, others doing well. And he said he spoke to one young male in particular, and he said, Mr. Wilkins, I'm not going to take up much of your time. I'm really high right now. You know, he was honest, like he couldn't function in a conversation because he was high. And then I said, high off what? And he was just like, maybe weed. And then I said, well, what did you say when he told you that he was high? And he said, you know, that he told him he was, you know, always and continuing to pray for him, you know, and he was there if he needed him. And as I was thinking on that conversation my husband had, it was just dropped in my spirit that some of our children show up to school high because their parents are getting high, and their parents don't see anything wrong with getting high, especially on substances like marijuana. You know, they feel like it's okay, and they do it openly in front of their children. And I know that a lot of people do because they don't see anything wrong. Like, it's still, some states have legalized it, and they just think that it's still something that you can do still in front of children and it not be a harm to them mentally, physically, or by way of their health, mentality, and their thought process surrounding using drugs, but it does. And then you get children showing up to school not being able to function in conversations because they're high, you know, and their mentality is they're not doing anything wrong because the examples that they have are also getting high. So, you know, that's a real sad state. You can't even like ideally get mad at a child who gets high because the people they're surrounded by get high, and they just feel that that's the way of life and that's just what you do. But I think this is a topic of conversation that I think needs to happen, and we can't be afraid to confront politely, respectfully, people who do drugs, whether they're legal or illegal, for recreation in front of their children. And then they pass on that thought process that, you know, it's okay. And then their kids start to try it, and then they think it's okay, and it becomes a way of life, you know. But there are certain things chemically that happen when those drugs are introduced to everybody's system, whether or not we want to address, you know, what happens when we use any drug, whether it be prescribed or purchased from the middle of the mall, or, you know, illegally in many cases. So just something that we got to be aware of. But a quick story. I recently went to the jazz festival in my town where my husband was performing, and we were underneath the visitor tent, like of the performances of the artists who were performing. They got their own visitor tent. So there was a group of people enjoying the concert too, who actually sat at the edge of that tent to get a good view of the stage. Now, underneath the tent where we were sitting, it was my 3 children. There was another family with their 4 children, and then another lady with her infant baby in a car seat. So concert's going on, and more people start to join this group. And then I noticed them bust down a blunt. So I noticed them roll a big fat blunt, like literally blunt big as my head. And then they start to smoke it and pass it around. So nobody is uncomfortable with this. I've got my children under the tent, another family under the tent, an infant baby under the tent, and here they are smoking a blunt at the edge of the tent. So the family with the children, the group of children, they get up and they leave. And then the lady with the infant baby, she just takes the blanket and drapes the blanket over top of the baby's car seat. And I'm like, okay, no. So one of the girls in a group notices me looking at them. So she, I noticed, skipped her turn on the blunt, but she never says anything to the other people in the group. So finally, I'm like, this is unacceptable. Like, okay, if you are legally smoking weed, which I doubt, then okay, fine. But don't do it when you see a group of children right here in front of you, which you have no regard for. Some people actually care about the health of their children and don't want them exposed to smoke, and not just marijuana smoke, but any smoke, because secondhand smoke for anybody, especially children, is not cool. So I get up and I say something, and they can tell I'm already annoyed. So he's like, oh, well, you should have said something. I'm like, well, you actually should have had the common courtesy not to be blowing marijuana smoke in front of a group of children. You know what I mean? So I will never forget his face. I will never forget his wife's face, who was not so nice about it. He was nice about it, but she wasn't. But he ended up putting out the blunt, but they weren't happy about it. He actually had the nerve to have on their business their business shirt. So I looked up their business and I'm like, what a poor representation of who you are in your own business. But I say that to say our children are taking notes. Pray for our kids, pray for our youth, and that's it. We just need a whole lot of Jesus. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm saying that with my whole heart.